Hi everyone, my name is Nuria and this is my student journey. And for today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this blouse here. This is video number 4 out of 5 videos that I'm making on how to modify the basic top pattern that I created some time ago, so you can design any pattern you want. This past week we went through how to create the basic block, then adding a neckline, then adding an opening in the middle, and now we're going to go into creating a wrap top. So the only thing we have to do is elongate this neckline here on both sides. It's going to be very simple, and don't worry because I'm going to guide you through every single step. We're going to draft the pattern together, we're going to put the pieces together, and then I'm going to end the video with some tips and tricks on how to modify this pattern or how to choose different fabrics so you can create anything you want. I hope you're ready for it, and let's get into it. Let's talk about materials. The first thing you're going to need is the basic top pattern. If you don't have it, I'm going to leave a video down below where I show you how to make it, and of course you can, if you have your own, it's okay if it's not the same as mine. Second thing you're going to need is some paper. If you don't have it that big, then you're going to be fine with some normal paper and tape. You're going to need a pencil, some scissors to cut on the paper only, and then rulers. If you don't have these specific rulers, it's fine, these are good to have. This shape here is nice for the armhole, for example, or for the neckline, but if you don't have it, you can do it by hand. And then another nice to have that I really like is to have a ruler with a 90-degree angle, because it's very handy. As for the fabric, you're going to need 1 meter of this, more or less, pre-washed. And for this design, I used linen. If you have one of these pens, these are very handy also. It's one of those pens that gets erased when you put the iron on top of it. Then some scissors to cut your fabric and never cut paper. Some thread, some needles to attach the pieces together. And I always like to have these normal needles if I want to make finishes by hand. In this one I have to say that I didn't make any finishes by hand, so it's just a nice to have, but I'm not going to use it for this one. And then finally onto the machines, you're going to need an iron, your best friend, then your normal sewing machine, and optional if you have a serger. That is everything we need, so let's get into drafting. The first thing we have to do is convert this pattern into a dartless pattern. Starting with the back, draw a line from the tip of the shoulder dart to the armhole notch. Do the same for the front pattern. Now cut through that line and also cut through the shoulder darts. We will transfer the shoulder darts to the armhole. Once that's done, redraw the armhole and the shoulder if needed. And there you have it, the dartless block. Once we have the main structure, we can start building it. This design is going to be different than the rest, so we'll have to draw the full front pattern. And after that, we can start building the neckline. The first thing we're going to do is identify where the bust points are. You can do that by looking at the basic top pattern. Now, draw the neckline. You can do that as long as deep as you want. But for reference, I extended it until the bust point and then I cut it there. After that, you'll know how big your shoulder is, and you can transfer that length to the back and draw the back neckline. When we cut an open neckline, our pattern will sit differently on our body, and we'll have some extra fabric. To fix that, we'll add some extra darts. If you're interested in why that happens, you can watch my video about contouring. We'll identify where the waist dart was, and we'll draw a 0.6 centimeters dart from the bust point to the middle of the neckline. We'll also subtract 0.3 centimeters from the middle of the shoulder. These are standard measurements. If you want to be more precise, check out the contouring video. Cut through the waist dart and the neck dart and transfer the neck dart to the waist, and then you can redraw the neckline. And there you have it, your wrap top pattern. Let's draw the sleeve. We're going to start by marking 0 at the top of the paper. We'll measure down 1/3 of the armhole measurement and mark 0.1. From 0, we'll also add the sleeve length down and mark 0.2. From 0.1, we'll add bicep divided by 2 plus 4 centimeters to both sides. They will be 0.3 to the left and 4 to the right. Connect 0.0 and 3 and 0.0 and 4. The left side corresponds to the back. We'll divide that line into 4s and add the numbers 5, 6 and 7. Moving to the front, so the right side, we'll measure from 0.4 halfway between 0 and 4 minus 1.8 centimeters and we'll mark 0.8.
Then we'll divide both sides halfway and mark 0.9 to the left and 10 to the right. Now draw a curve that goes from 0.3 to 0.5 centimeters below 0.5, crosses 0.6, goes 2 centimeters outside of 0.7, across 0.0, 2 centimeters above 0.9, across 0.8, 1.5 centimeters below 0.10, and ends in 0.4. To close off the sleeve, we'll measure from 0.2 wrist circumference plus 6.5 centimeter to the right and to the left, and we will connect the sleeve. This sleeve is meant to be a short sleeve, so it's the simplest design you can get. If you plan on making it long, I would add maybe an elbow dart or make a prototype first to make sure that the length is the appropriate one. We have to make sure that the sleeve is going to fit on the armhole and that it's centered. Measure for both front and back where the notches would be. After that, mark where the shoulder seam is situated. You'll see there's some extra fabric on the sleeve, which will give it a round shape. Measure the ease between shoulder seams and mark where the new middle would be. That's the center of your sleeve. Now that you have the main structure of the sleeve, you can shorten it as much as you want. For example, in my design, it's around 22 centimeters. And once you're happy with your length, you can start adding volume if that's what you want. We're going to separate it into little sections. The more sections, the more volume you're going to have in your sleeve. After that, we're going to separate those sections depending on how much volume we want again. For example, in my design, I separated them around 2 centimeters between each other, but the more you separate them, the more volume you will add. And once that's done, you can redraw your sleeve and you'll be able to choose if you want a normal sleeve or a sleeve with volume. Once we're done, we can talk about seam allowances. In general, all the seam allowances are going to be around 1 centimeter. If you don't feel confident enough to do 1 centimeter, then you can always do 1.5 or 2 centimeters. The only seam allowance that is not going to be 1 centimeter is the bottom of the sleeve and the blouse, and this is going to be around 2 centimeters depending on the finishes that you add to your blouse. One last thing to take into account is that this blouse is designed to be on the waistline, and if you want to make it longer, then you have to elongate the sides. And for reference, my blouse was 10 centimeters longer.
It's time to put the pieces together. So you should have 2 fronts, 1 back, 2 sleeves, and then the loops, the cord. If you have seen my other videos, you already know if your fabric frays or you want to do it because you like these finishes, you can overlock now, and you can overlock the shoulder seams and the side seams of front and back and the side seams of the sleeves. So here we have all the overlocked pieces. I ended up overlocking this neckline and the back line also because I'm not going to use facing. I'm only going to fold it, so then I like it better with the seams. But if you prefer doing facing, you know how it works. You just get some more fabric with exactly this size, and it should be fine. But for the rest, what I'm going to do now is put the right sides together. So this is the right sides together like this, and I'm going to sew on the shoulder seams and on the side seams. It is very important. So there's one side where your cord is going to go to, and this is this side. So you should have your notches there and there. So what I'm going to do is stitch until here, then this one without stitching, all this length without stitching, and then I'm going to stitch back here. So there I'm going to have a hole. I will do that, and then I will press flat all the seams. Front and back pieces are together and the seams have been pressed flat. And now what we have to do is the finishes. So in this case, the only thing we're going to do is fold and top stitch all around here, the back, and then the other front. And we will do the same for this bottom part. You can either fold it once or you can either fold it twice. If you press it before top stitching, it's going to help you 1000%. Personally, I prefer when we do some facing because these are very rough ends, but how I've seen it in the stores is they finish it like that and they don't talk about it. So I think this should be fine. Only minor thing that we're going to find is this back is round. So then it's going to have some pulling lines. What we can do to avoid that is before overlocking, we can cut some snippets around the edges, and otherwise that's why I prefer the facing, because then it's easier to do. This is how it looks like when it's done and top stitched. And as you can see here on the back, there are some pull lines. If you press it, then it's going to get a bit better. But yeah, the best thing is add some snippets before you top stitch it. Or if you prefer also, you can finish it with a bias tape. If you do that, I have the tutorial with the blouse number 1. So every day I showed you a technique. And we're going to add the sleeves. First, we're going to do 2 basting stitches, separated 0.5 centimeter from the edge and then 1 centimeter from each other. And they are going to go from knot to knot. And do not do a back stitch, so only go all the way around. I'm going to make sure that I have a straight stitch here and that I'm going to put it at the maximum stitch length here. This is how it looks like, and we're going to leave all these threads loose. Now we're going to put right sides together and we're going to sew along the side seam with a normal stitch. This is how it should look like. You see that I also press the seams open. And what we're going to do is turn it on the right side. So the right side is facing you. We're going to get this piece and we're going to turn it so the right sides are facing each other. After that, we're going to see where the notches are. So the front has 2 notches and the back has only 1 notch. And this one has 1 notch here and 2 notches here. So I know that this sleeve goes on this side. And we're going to make sure that all the notches are in the correct position. Like this. So the back notch, the front notch, the middle notch on the shoulder seam, and then the side seam. Once we have that, we're going to get these threads here on one side, and we're going to pull until the length of the sleeve is the same length as this part of the armhole. We can do that by pulling a little bit, and then we can secure it going around the needle. We make sure that all these gathers are distributed in a way that they are not going to be noticed, and then we're going to secure it with more pins. Once this has been done for both sides, we can add a normal stitch with the seam allowance that we added for the sleeve. So we have 3 options. This one is the typical cord that you can buy in your fabric store, or you can also use any yarn of some kind. The second thing is the bias tape. This is kind of what we did for blouse number 1, and what you can do, bias tape is something that opens and it's separated into 4ths, and what you can do is just fold it and then fold it in the middle and add a top stitch here. I like to use bias tape when the cord is too small, because if it's less than 1 centimeter, it's very difficult to create, and I normally go for bias tape. The third method is using your own fabric, and there are multiple ways on how you can turn it around. You can use these kind of tools. There are other tools also that I don't have here, but the simplest one is adding a strap of yarn, for example, and then putting right sides together and sewing along here and here, making sure that the yarn is attached. So let's go. This is how it should look like. And then what we're going to do is trim a little bit these edges here. And it's as simple as pulling from this side. And then the beginning is a bit tricky, but once it's in, it's easier. The bigger the cord and the lightest the fabric is, the easiest it is to turn around. So see, it's already here, and I can turn it all the way around. We would press it flat we would get rid of this piece of yarn and we would have the cord. For the finishes here, you can see that I use the same technique of overlocking and folding once all the way in all the garment. You can see it in all the garment. And then on how to attach the cord, the only thing that I did was folding the cord a bit inside so I don't see the bad seam. And then I just top stitched it here. It's good if you do two lines, so one here and one there, so it stays. If you're going to pull it a lot, it's good maybe if you do a zigzag stitch, whatever you prefer. I left it like this because I didn't want bad finishes in here. So this is the other side. And then what we're going to do, the moment you put it on, you're going to go from this side here all the way to the hole we left there. And that way it's going to come out on the other side. See? And you can pull as much as you want. And then you're going to have this side, this cord here and this cord there, and you're going to be able to tie it. So probably you'll go around your body, and then on the other side you're going to add a knot here. But that's about it. This is for the wrap top. And we're finally done with this blouse, and it's time for me to share with you some tips and tricks on how to spice it up a little bit. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to share with you is how I finished this blouse. I have one thing to say: if you have round edges, I would not go for this type of finishing because it's going to create a little bit of pulling lines. So what I would do is finish it with bias tape like this. It gives more of a neat finishing and I like it better. Some other things you can play around with is the size of the cord, or the, I don't know how you call it, the strap or whatever you tie yourself with. You can make it bigger or smaller depending on what you're looking for. I always prefer smaller, but I would have to try, I guess. As I said with the other blouses, you could also play around with the sleeves if you want them longer, or if you don't want sleeves, or if you want, I don't know, more volume. You know, you can do whatever you want with the sleeves pretty much. One last thing you can play around with is where you stop with the neckline. So in this case, I stop below my bust here. But what you can do is just go until the end of your top, and then you can tie it right there, and then you don't have to take into account any holes or anything when doing the seams. Or you can also make the V neckline a little bit more open or a little bit more closed, depending on how comfortable you are showing skin. I think that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you make it. If you make it, please let me know. My Instagram name is _Nuriamo. Don't forget to subscribe, and I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye!